Hello and welcome to this challenge where we're going to use Python Turtle to create a Christmas card with lots of snowflakes and a Christmas greetings. To complete this challenge here, you're going to need to reuse some of the code that you've already made when you completed the Snowflake challenge. And you can access this webpage to learn how to create your first snowflake. Now, if you remember, this challenge here was based on using Python Turtle to create snowflakes with 6 branches, and because all the branches are the same, we've decided to use a for loop. So to repeat 6 times, and then we've got here the code to draw a branch. Okay, so when I run this code, we can see that it's repeating this pattern. Now, the idea of this tutorial here is to customize our snowflake further. And instead of having just one snowflake on our canvas, we're going to create like a snowfall effect with lots of snowflakes at different positions, different size and different colors. Now to do so, I'm going to expand this so that you can really see what I'm doing. And we're going to investigate this code. Now, because I want to create many snowflakes, the first thing I'm going to do is actually create a function with all this code here used to create a snowflake. So I'm going to define a function. I'm going to call it snowflake. And my function won't take any parameters for now. And all this code here that is used to draw the snowflake, I'm going to indent it. So I'm going to highlight it and press the tab key. Perfect. Now if I run this code, nothing happens, because though I've made a function, I've not actually called my function yet. So I'm going to go at the end of my code here, and I'm now going to call my function once. Snowflake. And perfect, it's drawing the snowflake. That's one step. Now what I'd like to be able to do now is give some parameters to my function so I can customize the look and feel and the position of my snowflake. And the first parameter I'm going to pass is the color. So for instance, I would like to say I want to draw a snowflake with a red color. You can put the keyword red, or if you know the color code that you want to use the RGB color code in hexadecimal. So if I'm passing a parameter, I need to make sure that my function can receive a parameter. So, and I need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it color. I'm going to keep the American spelling here, though I don't have to. And I'm now going to use this parameter. So instead of doing my snowflake in blue, I'm going to create it with this parameter here. So whatever is being passed will be used to draw my snowflake. So let's try this. I should now have a red snowflake. And I should be able to repeat this and create a second snowflake. With maybe a blue color. So let's try to see what happens here. Okay, perfect. So I've got 2 snowflakes. They on top of each other at this stage, and that's going to be my next step. My next step is going to say, okay, how can I move this snowflake at a different position? Now, we've got to remember the size of the canvas, and per default on that trinket window here, the canvas is 400 pixels wide by 400 pixels high, and the center position is 0, 0. So X coordinate is 0 and Y coordinate is 0. So that means that both my X and Y coordinates, they can vary from -200 to +200 on the X axis from left to right, or -200 to +200 on the y-axis from bottom to top. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, for instance, put my first snowflake in the top right corner. So let's say I want to draw it from position 100 on the x-axis, 100 on the y-axis, where this one here, I'm going to put it in the bottom left corner, which is where the x coordinate is negative value, -100, and the y coordinate is also a negative value. But if I give 2 more parameters, I need to indicate that my function is now expecting 3 parameters. So the first one I decided to call color, and the next one is my X and my Y coordinates. And I'm going to use these parameters to actually move my pen before drawing the snowflake. Now, the idea of moving the pen is I'm going to lift the pen up so that when I move it, it's not going to draw a line. I'm going to use my pen.goTo to go to that XY position that is being passed as parameters. And then I'm going to lift my pen or put my pen down so that I can start drawing the snowflake. And let's see what happens. I now have two snowflakes, one in the top right, one in the bottom left corner of the screen. Okay, so that's quite good. I'm happy with that. Now the next change is a little bit more confusing. I'm going to add a parameter that says how much I want to zoom in or out, so how much I want to scale my snowflake. And for instance, I want them to be a lot smaller. So, and I'm going to give that as a kind of a percentage value. So, for instance, I want to scale it at 50%, and this one at 20%. So I have one that would be half the size and one that would be a fifth of the size. So this parameter here, I'm going to pass here. I'm going to call it size, okay, because in a way it's going to be the size of my snowflake. And what happens here is I don't need to change anything in the code to start with, but this is roughly the size of my snowflake, or at least the size of a branch of the snowflake, which is 100 pixels. Now, every time I move forward, I'm going to scale this down using the size parameter. So I'm going to multiply this by the size and divide it by 100. So in this case, I'm multiplying by 50%. So it's going to be half the size, or by 20%. So it's going to be a fifth of the size. And I've got to do that for every time I'm using the forward, which means that I'm moving my pen on the screen. So I'm going to do times size divided by 100. I don't need to do that with the left or right because these are angles. So my angles are not changing when I scale my snowflake up or down. But every time I'm using forward. So times the size divided by 100. And here as well. Times the size divided by 100. Oops, I made a mistake here. I meant 100. I've got a few more forward instructions. Size divided by 100. And the last one is here. Times the size divided by 100. So I should now have two snowflakes smaller than the one we've got now. So let's try. You can see this one is half the size. This one is 20% of the size. Perfect. Now I'm quite happy with that. So we've got the color, the X, the Y coordinate, and then the size of the snowflake. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create maybe 20 snowflakes to create a snowfall. And we're going to randomize the X, Y coordinates. So we've got snowflakes covering the whole screen, and we might even randomize the size, and later on we could randomize the color of our snowflakes. So in order to create 20 snowflakes, I'm going to use a loop for I in range, and I'm going to go from 0 to 20. And so I only need to draw one snowflake at a time, and it's going to repeat that 20 times. So I need to indent this code here. Perfect. Now at this time, it's going to put them all on top of each other. That's not good enough. So what I need to do is start to import the random library so I can generate random values. And I'm going to do that at the very top. It's good practice to do all your imports at the top. Now from that random library, I only need one function, which is the function used to generate a random number or integer. So I'm going to say from the random library, import the rand int which stands for random integer function. And I'm going to be able to randomize some of my values here. So for instance, I'm going to randomize the x coordinate by doing randint, and I can go from -200 to +200, or if I don't want to go too close to the edge, maybe I'm going to go from -180 to leave a bit of margin to +180 on the x-axis, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the y-axis. So a random y coordinate, which will also be a random integer randint from -180 to +180. And I'm going to use this to position my snowflake. So random x and random y coordinate. And it's going to do that 20 times, generate new values every time. So I should have 20 snowflakes at different positions. And every time I play this, I will have different positions. Okay, I'm going to stop that for now. And now the next thing I would like to randomize is the size of my snowflakes. So I'm going to have a random size, and it's going to be a randint between, shall we say, from 5% to 40%. I don't want them to be too big. So, and I'm going to use that as a parameter here, random size. Perfect. So that's probably a 5% here, very small. It looks quite nice, actually. I quite like this. This is good. Nice. I'm going to stop here. It would carry on up until it's done 20. Next thing I would like to do is randomize the color. Now, to do that, we're going to have to change the format of our color. So far, I'm using a hexadecimal value as a string. And I'm now going to change this, and I'm going to pass a tuple of 3 values. So I'm going to pass an RGB color code instead. And for instance, the red color is in RGB 255, 255, no green, no blue. So it's red, green, blue. And you can see I've used the brackets here to pass my color. Now that should still work. Perfect. And to make a random color, I'm going to generate 3 random values, a red value, a green value, a blue value. So red is going to be a random value between 0 and 255. Green is going to be the same, a random value between 0 and 255. And blue is going to be a random value between 0 and 255. And I'm now going to pass those 3 variables here, red, green, and blue. Let's try that. Perfect. So we've got random colors, random size, random X and Y position. Nice. I like this. And every time I play this code, I've got a different selections of snowflakes. One more thing I could do to randomize is the number of branches. Now they all have 6 branches at this stage. I'd like to change this actually. So I'm going to pass an extra parameter, which would be the number of branches. I'm going to call it branches, and I'm going to randomize between, now a snowflake with 4 branches I don't think would look good. It would look like a plus sign. So I'm going to say minimum of 5 branches, but I'm going to go up to 10 branches. And I'm going to pass that as an extra parameter to my function. Which means my function, which was accepting 4 parameters, need an extra one. Let's call it branches. Now it doesn't matter whether you use the same names or not, because you're passing a new value basically. But in the code of my function, it's now called branches. So what we have to change here is the loop. because this was repeating for each branch of the snowflake. So instead of going up to 6, we're going to go up to branches, which would be anything between 5 and 10. And now the angle that we turn between each branches, it used to be 60 when we had 6 branches. In fact, we can calculate this angle. 60 was because if you divide 360 by 6, that gives you an angle of 60. So basically you have to divide 360, which is a whole loop here, by the number of branches to calculate that inner angle here. So at the end where we were turning 60, before drawing the next branch, we're now going to turn by 360 divided by branches, by the number of branches. So let's try that. So this one has 5 branches. Oh, they all have 5. Oh, here we go. This one has a lot more. And we can see that it's been randomized here. This one has 6 again. Perfect. Very nice. I like this. So my next step is going to write a message, some Christmas greetings. And to do so, I'm going to use the write function in Python Turtle. Now let's add some comments in our code because it's a bit confusing here. So we've got the function here to draw a snowflake. It's good practice to, before every function you've got, is to explain the purpose of the function. So a function to draw a snowflake. And you can see here you can minimize or maximize this function. And that makes your code easier to read and debug. If you know your function is working fine, then you can minimize it like that. Your main code is actually starting here, so I do like to indicate where the main code starts. And this is the code that we've used to generate the 20 snowflakes. Now, before generating those 20 snowflakes, I want to add some code here to write a message on the canvas. So I've got some code here that I've reused from before. I'm just going to copy and paste it. And that's how it works. So first we can define the style of our writing, and then we can display the message. Now I'm going to put let it snow. With this style here, and I'm going to align it to center. That sounds good. Let's try to see what happens here. Perfect. Now this is the size here, 30. It's quite big, but actually that's what I want, so I'm happy with that. In italic, that's good. I didn't specify the color, so if I want to specify the color, I can do so here. So mypen.color. And I can specify either an RGB color, or I can randomize the color again using similar code to what we've got here, or I can put a hexadecimal value. Let's put it in red or in purple. Perfect. Now, what I like to do is create a new function to add text, so I can actually use it and write more than one message of text. So I'm going to define a new function, add text, and I'm going to use the code that I've got here for the function, and I'm going to indent it so it belongs to my function. And then I'm going to call my function, add text. So far, all I've done is moved my code above. I need a colon here, so that it's in a function, and I'm calling my function. So it generates exactly the same output. But I'm going to do a similar approach to when we've started adding parameters to our snowflake. I'm now going to add some parameters to my add text function. And the first one is the message that I want to display. So I'm going to pass it as a parameter. Let it snow, and I'm going to change it a bit. Here we go. And so I'm now expecting a message as my first parameter, and I'm going to use this message to write the text like this. So add text, let it snow is going to do that, and it's going to put it here. So same output so far, no changes here. Now I might want to do the same approaches where I've changed the color, the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, and the size. I'm actually going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to pass the color, the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, and the size of my text as different parameters. And for instance, I will be able to say I want this text to be in red color well, I can put it center of the screen, so I'm going to put 0 and 0, and the size would be, I quite like this 30, I think it works well. So these are all my new parameters, and I need to use them here. So the color now is going to be the color being passed as a parameter. Oops, didn't mean to do that. The size here, we're not going to hard code 30, we're going to use the parameter again. And we need to add the code to move the pen to the right position, the XY coordinates. I can do that by copy and pasting the code we've used here. Remember, we were lifting the pen up, going to the XY coordinate, and then bringing the pen down so we can start writing. So let's try this. Perfect. And the reason I've done this function here is because one of the benefits of doing a function is that we can reuse as many times as we want. So now I can add more text to my canvas. Have a magical Christmas. And I can specify the color. So I'm going to put that in magenta. The position, so I still want to be in the center of the screen, but I want to bring it down. So I'm going to put it at -30, and I want that to be smaller. So maybe half the size in terms of the font size. Perfect. I'm very pleased with that. Maybe the colors, I need to do something about it, but that's good. I don't really like the fact that the snowflakes are on top of my text. It makes it really hard to read. So what I could do is draw the 10 snowflakes first. And once I've done the 20 snowflakes, I'm going to put my text. Make sure the text is not part of the for loop. So it's after the for loop. You can see here my for loop contains all the code to generate a snowflake. And that should be it. Now it's going to take a bit of time because it's going to draw 20 snowflakes, and then on top of it, it's going to display the message. So let's see what happens here. I've got some really small snowflakes here. Perfect. I think that looks a little bit better. So that's it. That's it for the video. I'd like you to have a go at redoing this challenge here. And what we're learning by completing this challenge is how to define our own functions, and mainly how to pass parameters to our own functions so we can reuse them and customize the look and feel and the position of our snowflakes, customize the message that we want to appear, its position and its color and its size. Okay, have a go at it and feel free to customize this further. Bye for now.